Alright, so I get requests all the time for a particular style of jewelry I wear, which is rope. Here we have Asa-nawal, a Japanese term for essentially hemp rope, or a specific style of hemp rope. Now, this design that I'm going to demonstrate today, or demonstrate how to make, I used to wear all the time, all over the place. I'd wear just cotton rope, and I'd be essentially tied like a corset up my arm. Kind of looks like armor or something, doesn't protect from much. and and accordingly, people would see it, and they see it as a sort of fashion statement. It's kind of interesting because it's a nice design, and the design I'd wear is red and black, and it looked really cool. I'll post a picture at the end of this video for that. I just don't have that rope on me right now, it's in the other room, so we've got my favorite hemp rope. Now, yeah, generally I just call it an arm corset. I haven't found any historical documentation or even terms used by Japanese speakers regarding what this would be called. So as a Japanese term I've given it, I called it Ude Maki. Ude Maki means like an arm wrap. Ude means arm. Maki is basically to wrap something around. Maki is a common term used in Hojojutsu, Hibari, Kimbaku, various other forms of practice utilizing rope. And yeah, it just means to wrap around. We see it in the martial arts as well quite often. Various kata, various ways of grappling, various ways of utilizing the sword and spear will also use the suffix maki. So it'd be like maki would be like the sword wrap, where the two swords touch and one kind of rotates, and you see it in kendo. I forget the term they use for it, but same thing's done with the spear, the halberd, so on and so forth. So, enough talk. Here we have maki. So what we do is we utilize what's called the Hibari Musubi, the skylark knot, and that's, you take the end. There's two ways to do this, okay? You take the end, you loop it over, and you pull the rest of the rope through. The other way, and a quicker way, if provided it's prepared, is you loop it over, you pull it through itself. So there's a sort of loop. It's the same end no matter which way you do it. And you pull it not too tight. You don't want it on the wrist joint. You don't want to reduce mobility. And on top of that, there's certain nerves in here that are sensitive to compression and pinching. So you want it above the wrist, both to maintain your own mobility and to keep yourself from being injured. Right? Now this is 28 feet of rope. It's a little bit long for this particular project. It would probably go past my elbow. I usually use a much shorter rope. So here, this is Hibari Musubi. Now, as it sits here, we're actually going to pull it around in the opposite direction that it looks like it's going. And we're going to loop it under itself here. Now, because I'm using hemp rope, I have to be a little bit careful as to not lose all my arm hairs in pulling the rope through. Not that I'm particularly attached to my arm hairs, but it usually comes with a certain amount of pain, which is less than pleasant. I mean, it's like burning yourself on a stove. It burns, it sucks. So, as we pull it all the way through, we made that loop, we're now going to pull it against itself again, here. Now, this is one of 3 patterns I've seen. This is the most consistent one. The end result is a very consistent pattern, and I quite like this one in particular. When you have layers of rope like this, I like how it looks, so I lean towards this one. Some of the other patterns are more intricate, might be more impressive. Some people that aren't familiar with rope practices might not know what they're looking at. Whereas even this is a little bit complicated for some. Now, also to consider is the width of your rope. If your rope is really thick, well, this isn't really thick, but if it's particularly thick for this particular task, then you're going to have this big bulky thing on your arm. Where if you're using more commonly sold cotton, you might find it at a dollar store or at a hardware store, then it should fit better. It'd be less bulky, and then you can like mix and match colors, which is what I usually do. You'll see the picture at the end of the video. So you can already see its pattern. It looks quite nice. And you can fiddle with it all you want to make sure everything lines up, or to make sure to make it crooked. Because the purpose of this, as I mentioned before, I haven't found an actual purpose to this, besides practicing handling rope, and that it looks pretty neat when it's done. So, accordingly, there isn't really a practical application that I know of. So the purpose of this is just aesthetics. And accordingly, it being aesthetics, you can take the time to make it look nice. Now, this is going to end up going over my elbow, which causes two risks. Just like the wrist, just like any articulated joint, is that it'll restrict my movement, my ability to move, and minimize my mobility. And there's nerves all around each of the joints in the human body that are susceptible to pinching and compression. So I don't want to go that high. This is about as high as I'm going to go. There's many ways to tie this off, and it's totally up to your own preference. Because one of my arms is bound, I'm actually, how should I say, I have my hands tied as far as doing my favorite type of knot, which is actually a series of slip knots. Oh, look at that. Never mind, I can do it. And this little trick is called Hibari Musubi. It means chain rope, or a rope of chain, and it's just a series of slip knots. Looks kind of nice. So there you have the Ude Maki here, bonus little lesson. Asa-nawal. Right? Looks neat. This particular pattern here looks nice. And the inside looks intricate, even though it's really not. I maintain my flexibility. I've got no injuries. This rope isn't conditioned as much as it should be for wearing all day. So if you're going to go the hemp route, you want to condition it, and you'll have to look around for some guides on how to do that. I personally don't condition my rope. I just use it until it's very fine and soft. This is newer rope, so it's a little bit coarse. I think that's about all I have to say for this. In taking it off, and you'll probably, if you're binding this much skin, you'll want to take it off from time to time to allow it to breathe. In taking it off, you don't want to just pull it and rip it and tear and burn skin. You want to be careful. When you're pulling the ropes through like this, you want to make an effort to make sure the moving element of the rope isn't up against skin, certainly not tightly, because you'll be, well, taking skin with it. So even here, I'm going slowly and carefully so as not to burn myself. Measure this as if you're missing arm hair. You probably did it a little bit too fast, or it was tied too hard, or so on and so forth. Alright. So hopefully this will allow some people to figure out that cool little wrist knot, or that cool little arm corset that I wear every so often, that everyone asks me how to do, or they'll ask me to do it for them. If anyone knows any applications for this besides it looking cool or it being armor of some sort, or they know of some Japanese sources that'll have a name for this other than Ude Maki, then I'm all ears. And as with all my videos, if there's any requests for anything that you'd like covered, please don't hesitate to ask. Alright. So I'll put this away. And this is, of course, called Ude Maki Hō, the method of wrapping the rope. There you go. Cheers.